All right. Welcome to Project Geospatial, everybody. I'm Adam Simmons for Late Night Geo. And this is not necessarily a new segment, but it's a segment I've been trying to start for a number of months now, where I basically ask in an open invite, open mic setup, bring anybody else who wants to come on the show, talk about whatever, whether the geospatial community, geography, cartography, anything you can think of. And we just have a general discussion. Ironically, the first time I did this was with, a GIS dog here, Jeff Pearson, and he's back on the show with us. So I appreciate you popping on. And how about you just give a quick rundown of who you are, and we'll just get the discussion going.
Hey guys, I'm Jeff Pearson. Maybe you tuned in last night and saw my little brother, Pat Pearson. We are representing Kent State here. So I'm a Kent State alum. He's going over there now. I work in the industry for a large GIS company, which will remain unnamed for now. I'm sure you guys can put two and two together. And I'm happy to be on the show, Adam. Thanks for having me back.
No, absolutely. So let's see. To talk a little bit about discussions, I think we mentioned a little bit before we popped on and went live that you got a new drone.
I did get a new drone. It's a fixed wing drone. So I didn't tell Adam this yet, but I actually configured it with a 4G wireless adapter. It's got 3 lithium ion batteries, so it can fly for about 250 minutes. And the range is essentially unlimited because it runs off of 4G. Now, you're probably wondering, yes, that is illegal because I do not have a drone license, and it is illegal to fly it without line of sight. I haven't done that yet. And as a matter of fact, I haven't actually gotten off the ground because I have crashed it. I crashed it, not once, but twice. The first time I crashed it into a brick wall, right? I have absolutely no drone training at all. And I sent it back. So the actual camera cracked. I sent it back, and they fixed it. I got it last Sunday, and then I flew it into a pole, and I cracked the camera again. So it is now at Parrot being fixed. So hopefully when I get it back, I'll do a little bit more research on how to maneuver it and all that stuff. So I'm excited to have that and fly that around. And yeah, so the first time, so I configured it with the 4G wireless adapter, and Parrot called me and they're like, "Dude, what did you do to this thing? Like, this is insane." I literally duct taped it, right? So it comes with its internals is called a chuck, and you can and that's kind of the actual brain. And I did a little bit of the customization of it to where it can actually use that signal instead of the Wi-Fi wireless antenna that it actually comes with. So, and I self-admittedly don't know anything about drones. I have no idea how to convert drone imagery into a usable GIS project. So that's kind of where I was going, is how can I gather data with this drone, right? But also keep in mind that there's absolutely no sensors on it, right? How can I gather imagery with this drone and then populate it into like a Pix4D or a drone to map or something like that in order to analyze it, right? And that's So I know
there's no metadata whatsoever with this drone.
I don't think so. I haven't been able to collect anything to really analyze so far, so I'm not sure.
That's the hard part with some of these. You don't really know what files it sometimes populates until you actually use the thing. For example, I didn't even know what so I have a DJI Mavic 2 Zoom, so I got the Zoom version instead of the Pro because I like the aspect of zooming in on things. But it doesn't actually create a log file, it doesn't create GIS files until I actually record the videos or take pictures. So I had no idea what I was going to get. And then I found out I actually had to turn on some extra settings to enable some additional GIS related files to populate that I didn't even know about. The only way to really do it was to read some forms and files because that's what I care about, just the same as you, shooting some video, shooting some imagery, but how do I get it on the map at the end of the day without trying to geo-register it myself? So, awesome. So actually, I'm more impressed with that battery life. You said 250 minutes?
Yeah, 250 minutes. It's
over 4 hours. That's nuts.
So you have to figure that the fixed wing drone isn't like a quad or the actual chopper one that has like 5 or 6, right? It has one propeller that it has to, you know what I mean? So
it could pretty much glide and save a lot of power and energy that way, right? So.
Absolutely. You would need probably 10 to 12 of those types of batteries to run a drone like yours for sure. Yeah, those Mavic Zooms, they're what, like $1,500? I'm looking at them on Google.
They are really, so mine lasts around, I want to say that's 30 minutes per battery. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is enough time to do a lot with it. For example, I've mapped my whole neighborhood, that type of thing. So it's you can do a lot. And the best part is a lot of the lot cheaper drones don't have this kind of auto navigation correction software on board. So you have to actually practice controlling all aspects of the flight. In the DJI drones, you don't have to do that. It controls itself, stabilizes itself, and there's something to that, and I think a lot of drone operators who buy into the more expensive drones take that for granted for sometimes, because if you really want a crazy experience, try buying one of those $30 drones at the store and try to get one of those to fly. You're like, how does anybody ever do this? Then you realize, okay, put a few $100 more into it. You actually that kind of solves itself. But yeah, the camera aspect and the data aspects also. There's only so many companies out there that produce drones, especially American-made drones. It's the challenge is I'm always trying to look for what metadata do you produce on the side. Not just do you have a good drone, what's the battery life, but what metadata do you have? And there's really only a handful out there thinking about the not thinking about the general user, but thinking about the business case. What do people want to use it for? So I still think there's a lot of companies still just kind of scratching the surface on what the user demand is, and that's kind of blows me away. So
yeah. So what's interesting about your drone? So there's a DJI SDK. So software development kit. So you can actually run dev against that. I actually looked into that. Because if you can gather data, because with the Parrot drone, it's a little bit more recreational than it is, of a professional company. Parrot, just in general, they're just really fun drones. And I'm going to try to figure out a way to upload some of the DJI characteristics onto the Parrot drone, because there are some subroutines and arrays that you can build with that specific SDK in order to, work with it a little bit more, right? I can't get too nerdy with you when it comes to drone. I don't really know the talk right now, but, essentially trying to figure out what path you're sort of flying specifically, right? And then how to match those specific images that you're taking with, and then putting it correctly on your GIS, whether it's Q or Esri products or whatever, like a web map. So no, I'm really sort of looking forward to it. As soon as I get it back, I'm gonna get it up in the air, hopefully, and start gathering some footage. Yeah, if you aren't familiar with the Parrot Disco, it's pretty cool. I think you can get them on Amazon now for like $500, but you have to pay extra for the 4G adapter and the batteries. Obviously, I think the battery it comes with lasts 40 minutes, 50 minutes maybe. So, yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now. But
that's impressive. You're trying to customize all that. So I'll give you an idea. One of the biggest issues I have with so what I actually like doing is I'm trying to stream more data from the drone live. And there's not a lot of drones that do that right now. And the Mavic 2, when it first came out, had the capability to push drone feed live through RTMP feeds. If you're not familiar with I think it stands for real-time something protocol. I can't remember the messaging protocol. Anyway, if you're not familiar with RTMP feeds, that's actually how a lot of video broadcasters, such as myself, pushes video to platforms like YouTube and
like
video,
Facebook Live and stuff or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, from the broadcaster on the computer. So the drone Mavic 2 had that capability. Basically, is take the RTMP feed and broadcast it to your platform of choice. Put the URL on. But sometime in the last 6 months, it stopped working. and quietly they kind of stopped. And I'm wondering if they pushed that capability to the more expensive drones, trying to encourage people to buy that. So I've been constantly trying to look for other drones out there to do something similar. The closest one I've been keeping my eye on was the Evo 2 by Autel Robotics. And the Evo 2 is an interesting drone because it's an 8K camera on board. You think a 4K camera is insane. Doing an 8K video drone is nuts. The detail is crazy.
Is there a gimbal on this thing so you can actually move the camera around mid-flight?
Yep, it's pretty much in a lot of ways it's like the DJI Mavic, but it's just a significantly upgraded camera.
That is sick.
So for about the same price as the Mavic, by the way.
So quick question for you, and don't say anything that's classified, but I know you're familiar with predators and reapers and stuff. What's the difference from a camera that's on something like that, right? Like,
well, I'm not
gonna, resolution that those cameras can get are insane, right?
Well, I mean, look, you can look up any of the military videos that are published and kind of see a difference. The biggest difference is standoff range. A lot of the cameras that you see, we look at 8K and 4K and we think it's really good. It is good, but you also keep in mind that they look at the maximum height that these consumer drones are allowed to go, which is 400 feet legally. Of course, if you're a business case or in special exceptions, such as vertical height limits, if you understand the vertical height rule, it's actually a little loophole. I don't know if you're aware of that. So if you can actually go up to 400 feet above, if you're right next to, because drones can be used for looking at cell towers and other very high, like radio towers, to do inspections on them, right? So to kind of get around that 400-foot ceiling limit, the actual rule is it's 400 feet above the vertical obstruction that you're close by. I mean, you can't be like a mile and a half away. You have to be right next to the vertical obstruction for this to count. So if you count like a radio tower that's maybe, 500 feet up and then plus 400 feet, you can kind of push yourself up a little bit higher. Anyway, it's a little loophole, and I'm sure there's a gray area that people get in trouble for with that one too. But anyway, there's but so the height of these consumer drones are allowed to go at and what they're shooting at makes a huge difference. And that's why I like the zoom camera, because I like zooming in close and at least fairly close at 400 feet up and looking around at least. Tracking me, doing kind of some interesting videography shots, because the DJI drone has some cool little camera tricks that you can set on automatic flight paths that follow people or objects. And so if it's following me around to do some trick shots or certain vehicles around, like my vehicle to kind of do some kind of cool film photography settings, is capable of doing that. Now, look at the Predator drones, the military drones. Those are at, and you can see the metadata on the side when you look at some of these YouTube videos. Those are about at least 10 miles up. Something like that.
Oh, dude!
So you can imagine if one of those drones was 400 feet up, and then using the same camera, how close they can get.
Yeah, that's next level. Yeah,
that would be next level. But that's completely different playing field, right? Because that's like trying to get a satellite imagery camera and saying, trying to do a landscape photo with it or something like that. I don't know. Trying to look through the scope and look at the deer or something from a distance.
It's like a whole nother world of GIS that, I basically uncovered randomly, right? It's like, hey, I think drones are cool. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. And it goes deep. Like,
it's a broad field.
The drone game goes
I'm barely
deep.
Scratching myself, and so I basically grasp onto the stuff that I like looking at the most, or what I'm trying to do with it. I care about the streaming data, so it puts me on the edge of trying to figure out how to extract the data or use certain pieces. Like, for example, I don't actually use all the DJI software because because I mentioned that the RTMP feed doesn't work, right? So what I started doing is I actually downloaded an app called Camerify. Is it Camerify? I think it's Camerify. I think I have it on here. What is it called? It is Camerify Live. And Camerify Live, it basically, because I have to use my phone to look at the feed on the DJI drone, Camerify allows me to screen capture what the feed on my drone and use an RTMP to broadcast it out. So I'm basically screen capturing the video from my drone feed and pushing out through a different method because the drone's not doing it itself for some reason. So finding all these loopholes. So, and then there's also little extra feeds like applications like airdata.com. Big fan of that because I take all the drone log files, upload it automatically, and it visualizes the flight in 3D for me, so I can see the exact flights I took and actually what angles I took the images at. So it's pretty insane. And actually, I don't know if I can.
So in the data schema, you would already have Z values.
There
the
log
in
files
order
have
to build
all
pyramids
that.
and stuff. Dude, that's sick.
That's
some next level stuff.
And that's just by nature of the drone. The drone has all that already.
Wow.
That's
incredible.
So I look for drones that have that in there because I don't want to spend time trying to load software on it. And yes, so the problem with the SDK kit is, you can grab the SDK kit, but it's really you still have to get it on the drone somehow. And the only way to talk to the drone is through your mobile device. So you have to build basically an application or sideload an app that works with the drone signal itself, or talking to the drone directly. And you basically have to it's basically instructions how to talk to the drone through a mobile app and grab all that data the drone collects on the side.
So my idea for using that SDK is, have you heard of Microsoft AI for Earth?
Yeah.
So I want to pull data because that data right now is open source. It's tough to find, but you can find it or you can request it. If you haven't seen a demo of it yet, but you can throw a picture of a wildebeest in there and it'll say this is a wildebeest, right? Or you could throw a picture of a rhino or whatever. I want to use that because, I'm an environmental scientist at heart. So I would like to fly around my drone and then have it pick up animals of Colorado and then have it send like some type of notification and to have it actually track, right, based on what it's seeing. That's sort of my sort of vision there. Well, that's a cool image.
Yeah. So give you an idea of what I'm looking at there. Let's see. I can't tell if on air people can hear me through the. So I'm going to have my screen up at the same time in an awkward perspective there. Trying out this new software on the side. So no, don't turn that on. Okay. Still playing with some of the studio stuff. Hold on. Hide that.
So I'm going to go let my dog upstairs. I'm going to let the GIS dog. Daisy, come here.
GIS dog.
The GIS dog.
For the audience, we will be, I guess we're taking a small little break. So the GIS dog can come in.
Come on, Daisy. Come on.
For those just joining us, Jeff Pearson, or GIS Dog, we're talking about drones right now. Drone data, what drones have you got, and just basically our experiences with some of the data. So stay tuned as we still have stuff to talk about. So stand by. Jeff will be back in a second.
Hey, can you still hear me?
Yep, still hear you fine. So the image I took up, this is basically a snapshot from airdata.com of one of my drone flights in the neighborhood. And for those of you who ask, I was able to see the drone at all times because I was actually standing in the park in the middle of the neighborhood. So line of sight, believe it or not, throughout this entire mission. So, but I can't go 3D in this mode, but the 3D lines are in here because I can export into KML. You can see the tracks will be 3D if you put it in Google Earth. But this is an example. The drone actually takes a kind of a general kind of look angle where the image was taken. It's not the exact field of view, but it gives you the basic general angle where the image was taken, at what point during the flight, and then you can bring up the individual snapshots. So tons of data within the log files themselves, and that's why I love about that. It gives me a lot of different use cases to do a lot of stuff with it.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting because, I'm learning a lot about imagery just by learning about drones. I'm not an imagery guy. I'm more of a vector schema data guy. So, learning about raster analysis and, building tins and converting them and all that stuff. It's definitely pretty interesting. I so I know a lot about NEPA compliance and stuff like that. So I'm trying to figure out how we can use drones to sort of expedite that. So if you're not familiar with NEPA, Adam, it's essentially the federally, it's like the regulated way for environmental compliance, right? You can't just build a bridge somewhere and not mitigate for those sort of impacts. So how can we use drones to expedite that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it sounds very interesting. So you're kind of just in the beginning of stages, to kind of exploring what the potential is, right?
Yeah, yep. So obviously, Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act is a big part of NEPA, and that's essentially threatened and endangered species. So my idea is that if you're going around in an area, right, it's like, hey, we're wanting to build a road or a building or something like that. Instead of having to send a biologist out into the field, you can send the drone using Microsoft AI for Earth. Be like, hey, we're looking for, these types of species, and then obviously the actual drone can pick up, stuff a lot faster than someone just walking around, right? So,
or you can just set it up on daily schedules to go out there and scan the area,
yeah,
and do counts, right? And the cool part is a lot of these drones have interchangeable cameras, so throw an IR camera on there, get a pattern of what that animal looks like under IR, and there you go.
Yep. So, and then also, I don't know a lot about sensors like LiDAR sensors, but wetlands, Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, right? How do you create a wetland line, right? It's called a wetland delineation. So, and I know that LiDAR can pick up soil moisture and stuff like that. So, again, I'm not a LiDAR guy. I just know that they do use this type of technology to put together something like the National Wetlands Inventory, right? They just have a plane that flies around the country and picks up soil moisture, wetness, and, vegetation and stuff like that. So how can we put that onto a drone and then, instead of sending people out into the field, just fly it, right? But, that's kind of my vision for what I want to do with my fixed wing drone. I'm probably a year, 10, 15 years out from actually doing that because I don't have enough time. But so,
well, yeah. I mean, first step is you got to get that commercial drone license, right? Part 107.
Dude, I know it's $1,000, and you have to take a test. I think that's what I saw. I think that's what I thought. I saw it. That it's about $1,000, and you have to pass their test.
It is no. I've looked into this. No way, it's $1,000 fee.
What do you think it is? I could have sworn I thought it was $1,000. I'm googling this right now.
Yeah, same here. You and me both. Because last I looked at it, I didn't see no $1,000 registration fee. Registration costs $5, and okay, that's just for the drone registration. Where's the
test? Shout out to my little brother. I would hire him as my cartographer because he is a wonderful, for everyone that's looking for a cartographer out there in, the GIS world. My little brother, Pat Pearson, he goes to Kent State right now. He would love to be your cartographer, 100%. He loves it, and he's really good at it. So shout out, shameless plug. Thanks, Adam.
There you go. So now I am. Now I'm really bothered by this. There's no way it's $1,000. I've seen a lot of companies out there that are doing drone Part 107 training. That's a few $100. But you don't need that if you care to have you can just download all the FAA documentation yourself and just study up on it. It's a lot like taking a pilot's test, I hear. And I went through. I almost got my private pilot's license. I just cheaped out. I didn't feel like
that would be sick. Are you kidding me? Like, you can get like one of those ASPRS like certifications, and like, what's that called? like certified mapping scientist and like
Oh,
professional
really? See,
photogrammetrist or
I knew
something
it.
like that.
This was when
Yeah.
I was in the Air Force. I was doing the oh man, the Aero Club on base, and that was, you have to understand, a flight was $100. It was $100 an hour at the time, so that was cheap. And by the time I was about ready to get actually get the training done, because I actually had to do in-flight hours credit, and I think the minimum was 40 hours of in-flight, and to get the pilot's license, and then I just, man, that's like $4,000 out of an airman's pocket. I know a lot of people did it, but I was spending money on other things at the time. So.
Oh, dude, I spent money on so much stupid stuff when I was an airman. God, it's so dumb because it's like you're just living in the dorm, right? I was on the meal card, so it's like, what did I spend all my money on? Like just stupid stuff. It's like, for all you NCOs out there, monitor your airmen, right? Counsel them and make sure that they're not spending their money on.
Well, it's ironic because probably the NCOs
whatever.
are not too many years ahead of the airmen, and
that's
the
true.
lessons learned are really, minimum in that case. You really need someone like a master sergeant or senior NCO to come in and say, like, all right, guys, this is what I did wrong.
Yeah. I'm actually trying to convince Pat, my little brother, to be like an officer in the Army or the Air Force for geospatial. But I'm not sure how the officer. I wasn't an officer, so I'm not sure how that works. If you even get to choose your job, but I think with his degree in geography, I think he'd be eligible.
So they'll be in a general intel category. So they'll become it's more of an all source analyst tradecraft than anything else. They don't dive specifically in the GIS, although they can if they go to certain assignments. But as an officer, they may more become a jack of all trades intel officer, which is, so if you really want to dive into the geospatial realm, unfortunately, enlisted, more of a technical career field is really the way to go. But obviously, if you got any kind of college, it's kind of, where do you want to go with your career path? Do you want to be someone more technically heavy, or do you want to become a leader? And that's, unfortunately, the military is split in that way.
Being prior enlisted, I am going to tell him to be an officer 100%.
Yeah, that's what it's kind of what I'm trying to tell our children too. It's like, you know what, the military pay for college for you, but if you can get some of that college in there, join ROTC, and become an officer, that's the route I suggest. So work out in the long run.
Yeah, I think what would be awesome for me is if I can get, my, because I have 2 daughters right now, is to get them in like the Air Force Academy or something. Like, so the Air Force Academy actually has geospatial science undergrad degree that you can get from that. I have no idea what the curriculum looks like. Probably human geography and geomorphology and like military geography, something like that. But the Air Force Academy is putting out officers that have their degree in geospatial science, right? So kind of interesting. So in the Air Force, if you leave the academy with a geospatial science degree, you would think that they would have them do GeoIn, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe they put those guys in like pararescue or something.
Well, I think that goes into more technical things, actually understanding the sensors to more of a data science level, and leading projects when it involves more cutting edge technologies. And that's something I've seen some of the agencies, a lot of the officers get involved with the agencies on that level, or some of the NASIC, or once again, some of the Air Force research facilities.
Yeah. So like with your, when you're in the Air Force, for the officers that you worked for, were they pretty on top of it when it came to geospatial? Or were they just...
Well, and this is, I don't know, loaded audience. So forgive me if some of my past leadership is watching me these days. So it's definitely an opinion that is 10 years out of time. But looking back, I would say that you definitely got a mix. So you had folks who were trained as intel officers that came out of intel school, which is at Goodfellow, and they think they had a pretty broad sense of what was going on, and the best way for them to learn was just get on mission and learn it. But the officers that I, in my opinion, that I worked for that had really sharp head on their shoulders. Wasn't, of course, you can always say the prior enlisted officers were interesting, but the ones that really had a really good sharp head on their shoulders were the guys who went to weapons school. And weapons school is a really unique opportunity for a lot of officers. I don't know how hard it is to get in. I think it is kind of hard to get into the weapons school, but it's certainly a club unto itself in the amount of training and the specific types of training. And weapons school is actually, how do I sense? It trains officers to be very tactically and strategically minded towards tactics, techniques, and procedures. So and that's a very general description, but these guys learn everything, and they become a POC for the squadron they work for the cutting edge stuff, workflows, and bringing in what the mission needs to get the job done.
Yeah.
So that trains out of Nellis Air Force Base, I believe. So.
Gotcha. I did some time at Creech, so I'm kind of familiar with what it's like out there. But so what's your opinion on the Space Force? Right, you would be in the Space Force right now if you stayed in, right?
Yeah, and it was a real shock to me when they said they were bringing the geospatial guys into the Space Force. I'm like, oh boy. Well, I'm like, that's not much of a choice you're giving enlisted guys. So I don't know. Mixed opinions. If you asked me when I was like 10 years old, like I would have been all about this because I always wanted to work for NASA. I was inspired by all the, all the space stuff back in the day. But from a political and or just bureaucratic knowledge I have looking at the whole situation, it's I definitely have a lot of mixed opinions about the existence of the Space Force, and because to me it's just money divvied up a different way. Does it need to be done? I don't know, because to me the Air Force, in my personal opinion, just from my perspective, and that was pretty limited when it came down to the space stuff, I understood how things were managed with space assets, whether it be from the Air Force or how some of the agencies were responsible for some of the assets between launching them, like from the NRO, National Reconnaissance Office, is responsible for launching some of these satellites on behalf of the government and managing them from that stance, or some of the other agencies responsible for tasking and collection and managing the data behind some of these assets before it gets passed to the military. So, and then of course you have the space side of the Air Force, which was originally, tracking all these things, managing it, to me, just fine. And our presence in space beyond managing satellites, and it didn't really make sense to involve and scale it up because we didn't have a lot of people in space, right? So
yeah. So two questions, or a question and then a statement. Did you watch the Space Force TV show?
I did. And to me, it's hilarious. And I know a lot of it was making fun of the Space Force, but a lot of it actually, to me, how often, and this goes a question to you, and we're getting off the geospatial topic, I know, but from your perspective in the military, how much, if you ever watched The Office, did you ever wish that you had a military version of The Office because of all the craziness that happened on crew that normal public people wouldn't understand? He's like, you don't understand. There's a lot of, take The Office and make it in the military, and you guys would be cracking up over some of the situations, just the general conversations.
Oh my God. So
brutal.
So it's funny that you say that, because I just subscribed to Vet TV, and they have a show that's sort of like that. I don't, another shameless plug there, but they have it. It's kind of like a recruiting office, and it's, it is absolutely hilarious. But it's only hilarious if you're a vet. I definitely know that program sends a lot of people.
It took me years to figure out that, it's not that. It's hard for me to say, but society just would not understand the conversations that happened in the military. They would throw stereotypes on criticizing what kind of people military people are. The truth is, there's just no filter on people who have a different perspective on life. And to me, in a weird way, the freedom of, it's not necessarily a freedom of speech. It's more like the aperture of what people talk about in the military is so much more than the stigma that is around people dancing around conversations in regular society.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, but so when the Space Force show came out, I was glad to see some hints of that influence in that show. You can tell they got some consultants working.
Oh,
with these
for
guys.
sure, 100%. So
My favorite part, by the way, was I know this is a little bit of a spoiler, but there's like the second or third episode where, oh man, the doctor, the guy who, the smart scientist who's basically the Steve Carell's second in command there.
oh yeah, you're talking about John Malkovich.
Yeah, so when he goes in and tries to go in Steve Carell's office, the general's office, and the security guard stops him, asking for his badge, and the guy and he goes like, "Badge? I walked all the way here without my badge," and he's like, "Oh boy."
You have to walk all the way back to your office and grab it. It's like,
I wish you didn't tell me that.
as a prior security forces guy, I absolutely loved that part, 100%. But
oh man, he's like, you don't understand how realistic that one moment was. And I just, I tell people, it's like that one little instance right there says it all.
Yeah. So I kind of bringing it back to GIS and stuff. I wanted to because I have a strong background in offensive security. I'm as a hacker, I use Kali Linux and stuff like that. I actually was set to try to hack the satellite at the DEF CON this year, but COVID kind of put a dampering on that. If you go to, I think it's called hackasat.com, I was going to try to hack the satellite. Me and a couple of my buddies, it's like, hey, I feel like we'd probably be able to do this. So kind of bringing that back to GIS data, because that's definitely a conversation that I feel like isn't happening enough, right? It's like, hey, you have an enterprise, maybe you have like in like Postgres or an enterprise GDB and Oracle or whatever. How secure is it, right? It's like, what do you think? As I'm not sure what your background is, Adam, in the security, but as someone that's in the industry, how secure do you think? Just off the top
it's something
of your head?
that I got a couple friends who are dabbling with concepts of satellite-based security from a signals or communicating with the satellite. So it's interesting to hear about. I'm definitely not an expert myself, but it does remind me of situations before this big satellite, small sat boom, right? So think about this about 20 years ago. When I was a kid, I always used to talk to my dad about, why can't we just rip off satellite TV or rip off, you always hear people about ripping off the cable company, buying a cable box and hacking it so you can get the cable for free,
Yep.
And I was always talking to my dad about that when I was a kid about, like, oh, you're a signals guy. You work, because he used to work as a Marine, as a signals guy, and now he actually builds some of the RF transmitters for a satellite company. And so I used to talk with him as a kid, be like, oh, can we just steal a satellite cable and get free cable that way? And he said, actually, there's a situation, or there's a case out there, and I had to go do an internet search about people are, if you can figure that out, you can do it yourself legally, because apparently there's some kind of, and obviously I'm sure lawyers by now have kind of thought something up by now, but back then, at least 20 years ago, you can do it yourself. And because it's open air, anything you can grab from the air, as long as you can bring it in yourself, you can try to convert it into something readable and use it yourself, no problem. The only caveat was, I think there was some kind of court case with the guy who did this, and he won against the cable companies. As long as he wasn't selling or distributing the feed, he can do it as much as he wanted.
Really? That's really interesting.
So I was like, he had basically intercepted the dish.com or Dish TV, and got free cable himself because he was really smart about how he intercepting the satellite transmission. But as long as he didn't share that out, he was just fine. And that's basically one of the stories my father told me from so I always wonder about intercepting the transmissions of imagery collectors. I know they go over ground stations and transmits this stuff out, but hey, it's still a signal. And if you live near a ground station, I kind of wonder if you can intercept some of these things and take it in yourself. Not to say you'd want to. I mean, I'm not encouraging that, but on the other hand, curious, open air, So
the open air stuff is
And as a satellite provider, what do you do to secure that? So
yeah, I mean, I don't the sort of like the open air stuff. Like you hear about people that hack like baby monitors and stuff like that. That definitely gets kind of scary. But
it's not open air if it's over the internet, though. That just comes down to internet security.
Well, no, I'm saying like if you have a baby monitor that's literally just like an RF, type of frequency,
okay.
And then you can I remember like a few years ago, someone was getting on people's baby monitors and like saying like really obscene thing.
People did that through I think Nest, a lot of the Nest passwords.
Yeah.
But that was pure internet there. It was on the Wi-Fi, but people were hacking their username and passwords for the Nest accounts themselves. They weren't actually intercepting the signal, the Wi-Fi signal on people's houses.
Yeah. What? How much more time do we have left?
Oh, we can go as long as you want, man.
Okay, cool. Because I wanted to talk about. So my little brother is graduating next year, and I told him to ask you what your advice would be for him on what he should be doing to land a job when he gets out. And so basically what I'm telling him to do is to network as much as he can, right? And be willing to move. Like, hey, if you have to move to Humboldt, Iowa, right, to get a GIS job for your first job, just be willing to relocate, right, is basically what I'm telling you. Just apply everywhere.
Yeah.
And just network.
That's a lesson you learn from the military, right? Don't get attached to location. Location doesn't matter. And location doesn't matter as opposed to the mission, but when it comes to the civilian world, location should not matter if you care about a job that you want. Because the second you think about location and you like the location, it's like, oh, I care about this city. I really like this city. It's like, well, great. How many jobs are in the career field that you care about there? This many? Well, now it's either very competitive or they just don't exist. So, what kind of aperture you're opening yourself up to. So yeah, the networking things are some awesome advice. And what I think I tried to explain to him last night, or give him the advice of is hey, join organizations, participate in some of the clubs or organizations that we have. Obviously, this community, the geospatial community, has many of them, right? USGIF or the American Geographical Society, for example, very very prominent organizations. And for somebody who's a young professional, such as your brother, it's little to no cost to participate in them. So it's worth it just for the networking approach, because a lot of those organizations will get you involved with meeting very important people who can become your mentors and guide you along a career path. Now, obviously, if your brother chooses the military, it's a kind of a different grain of salt for what he should do. So
yeah, and I'm trying to. So my goal for him, because he didn't really mention it, but he showed a lot of interest in the NGA at the NGA booth at UC last year, and he was just chatting those guys up, and they were showing him all kinds of workflows that he was super interested in. And I know the NGA has an internship program where they start you as like an IA1 or something like that, or like a GA1 where you make nothing.
If I knew the agencies had internships when I was in high school, I would have been all over that.
Oh, dude, 100%, right?
I had no idea. And the worst part is I lived in this area.
Man, yeah, it's nuts, right?
I had no idea.
Yeah, so he's super interested in the NGA and the defense and like all the intel type work. He's good at cartography, and I think the intel community has some of the best cartographers that I've ever seen, aside from Park Service guys. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where he winds up. Personally, if he doesn't go NGA or in the military, I can see him going into going middle of nowhere, North Dakota for a few years just to get some practical experience. But
middle of North Dakota.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, just because I feel like there's a lot less competition out there, right? Like when they put out.
No, I think it's a lot less. Okay. I think there's a part of the industry we don't talk about a lot, and this was a good reminder of me when I went up to Colorado a year or two ago, and I helped a real estate agency figure out an issue they had with some but I was reminded that there's an entire section of the geospatial that are land-based sensors. For example, the guys who do land surveys, the guys who in some states, like Colorado, for instance, or some of the Western states specifically, have these survey-like guilds out there that they're either policy-driven or contractually driven by certain construction ordinances that they have to get involved and do stuff with. So it basically creates jobs, if not helps certify some of these builders from actually doing things. So I can see there being a branch down that line going into states like, South or North Dakota, or even like if you're talking about oil and gas, there's definitely a lot of maybe some prospects in that area. But I would say the career pool is a little small out there, in my opinion.
So, and the reason why I bring that up is because I help out, customers all over the country sometimes set up their enterprise GISs, and Windows and Linux servers and stuff like that. And I went to a super remote area once I went to a few. One was in Humboldt, Iowa. The other one was in, Durango, Colorado. Some spots were out in like Minot, North Dakota. And in every single one, there was, someone that had just started out. Hey, yeah, I just graduated from the University of Michigan. What are you doing in Iowa, bro? It's like, okay, I saw the job posting and I applied. I feel like, and these are with state and local, right? So it's like counties, right? So it's like the county will,
have small offices, though. For example, even my Loudoun County, Virginia, they have a really tiny GIS office. It's like maybe just a handful of people. So I don't know how. I mean, you got to get lucky, I guess, to get one of those spots. But I consider those highly competitive.
So I'm on Indeed right now, and there's a GIS specialist position in Mandan, North Dakota. I don't even know where that is. And I have a degree in geography. I have no idea what that is. And it's for a GIS specialist. Looks like it pays what's the pay on this?
Probably 50, 60.
I don't even think so, man. It looks like probably like 10 or 20. No, I don't know. It doesn't say.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's the other problem with these remote locations is I mean, I know cost of living out there is low, but it's not that low.
Yeah, no. So I'm just saying, like, for my little brother, Pat, if he doesn't, I think he'll be fine. He did really good job networking at the UC. He met, we were hanging out with some people from Kaiser Permanente that, did GIS stuff, and they were really interested.
Oh, man.
And then,
companies are just going crazy over the industry right now.
Dude, it's nuts, right? And those guys were sharp. I honestly can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but they definitely hire some pretty talented people over there.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Well, a lot of them are taking advantage of it, and I'll give a shameless plug myself with some of the interviews I've done earlier this year with John Isaac Clark with Arturo.ai. They take advantage of aerial and drone imagery to look at roofs for insurance purposes. They use a series of artificial intelligence, machine learning to figure out if there's roof damage over an area and help insurance companies out with that. So that's a really cool aspect to it. But it's definitely a growing area of the industry.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so here's another one, GIS technician in Muscatine, Iowa, right? I feel like there are these all over the country that I feel like.
I think the other problem is, you're right. They are all over, and I probably need to do more job searches just to get a better idea of what's out there. The point is, I think too strategically. I'm like, okay, what does that do for your career field if you get stuck in this little small, tiny?
Well, I mean, stuck is it's really getting your feet wet. And I'm actually looking at this. This is a GIS analyst for Come and Go in Des Moines. So if you want to work for Come and Go, the big
what was that? You mentioned like 20 or 30K. Some of these jobs sound a little bit undervalued for what the career field is.
Oh, what? But I mean, to work for Come and Go, do you get free Twinkies? Okay. What are the benefits of that?
No, I hear you, and I guess maybe my perspective is a bit changed as well because I'm no longer single and I got kids to look out for too. So going anywhere is not on my plate as much as it used to be. So
I'm gonna shoot you a PM of it because like I think you'll think that this job posting is amazing
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
come and go GIS job. But yeah, no, like
Hey, remember
so
we're still
for
live, so that's a shout out to anybody who's looking for something.
oh yeah, I mean if you like shout out to anyone who is graduating or is looking for a job, be willing to like do a relocation to the middle of nowhere for a few years to get your foot in the door, right? Dude, I still have people that I graduated with
The
in
come and
college
go
that
gas station. Seriously.
well, you're not working at a gas
No,
station doing
you're working.
GIS, obviously, but
You're, no, you're working for a corporate.
yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, be willing to like relocate. Like
But
that is huge.
this job listing makes sense because this is the kind of job though that I expect a lot of companies to have. I expect a lot of companies to have a couple GIS doing this type of strategic planning for new facilities, new sites. So think about this. Think about a fast food chain like Chick-fil-A, who think about how strategically Chick-fil-A plans out their locations. I expect them to have a few GIS doing something similar to it. The company.
Yeah, I am. I'm personally a Raising Cane's guy, but I definitely get your point.
How I don't know how the name like the come and go is still a name, to be honest, but that's just me.
I mean, it's a brand, right? Like once you build up a brand, like it's, you know what I mean? Like, what's that football team? It's a football team, the Washington
The Reds.
Redskins. They have to change their whole brand up. It's like, oh my god, you know how much money that's probably costing the team, dude. I guarantee you, they have.
Time coming. That's a long time coming.
It definitely is. And from a business perspective, I kind of understand. They're like, oh, let's try to hold on to it because it's going to cost us probably hundreds of millions of dollars to rebrand the whole team, right?
All the marketing and swag.
Yeah,
Wide.
but I mean,
yeah. I mean, and what do you do? Do you discontinue those, or those become like collector's items? I don't know.
well, no, like so. As a capitalist myself, I'm just like, hey, you have all these companies and stuff like that. They're like, hey, we're not going to be doing business with you. We're not going to sell any of your merch, right? So I guarantee you, all those bigwig financial analysts at the football club are like, man, we're going to lose $800 million over the next 10 years. Let's change this name up because, right, we will lose more on the branding, but it'll wind up catching up.
Yeah, with all the COVID stuff, it's like, what do you do? Just throw in the towel in sports at that point? It's like, oh, it's not even worth it anymore.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that it definitely is a long time coming for that specific team name. The Redskins is like that. How is that not one of the most racist names? I don't know how you can argue that, but no, but this whole come and go job. I mean, if I was just graduating. I'm a huge Hostess fan. I can eat honey buns and Twinkies with the
1 to 3 years
with the best of
experience. So not too. Yeah, it's definitely. I wouldn't say it's not. It says GIS analyst too, so it's definitely an entry level position to an extent. It's not like. I guess you have to have some experience, but not required.
So they want you to know Esri GIS. They're probably using ArcMap, ArcPro. They want you to know Excel, which you can Google that over a weekend. Tableau, right? Prepare reports.
These requirements are so broad that
yeah,
it's the starting point. I'm sure it's, once you're in the job, you can pretty much use anything to get the job done.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you could tell that whoever made this posting probably isn't a GIS person. They probably copied and pasted it off of somewhere.
Well, probably like, here, know the basics at least, and then you can just hit the ground running.
Dude, that would be awesome if my little brother worked at Come and Go. Are you kidding me? I would. He would get nothing but made fun of by me for the next 3 to 6 years that he'd be there.
If you want that free beer shipped to you. Is there a unique product that they have that you can have them send you?
Coffee. I know that Come and Go makes their own coffee. Right? Is it good? I'm not a coffee guy. But I think a coffee person would say that it's more generic, but I don't know, right? But like there's definitely jobs like this all over the country. Let me see, like what's another random state that you can pop into there? Let's try Wyoming. And here it is. Yeah, GIS Consultants Y2.
My ads and all my social networks are going to go crazy now after I've searched for a few of these.
Yeah, it's all right here. So they're looking for a GIS program. So $5K a month. That's not bad. Planner 1, City of Cheyenne. Yeah, I mean, we could probably go through these job postings all night, but the whole point is just
there's jobs out there. I'm not saying
there are jobs out there. Yeah,
there are jobs out there, but I also have a perspective on, I think there's a lot of jobs out there because I think a lot of these small town municipals or these companies, I think also undervalue the career field, and a lot of these billets kind of just hang there.
100%.
Because you easily go through these and say, oh, what's the salary? For example, this one I'm looking at right now, actually, it's not that bad. This is in Townsend, Maryland, though, so it's anywhere between 63 and 82,000. So not bad for an entry level GIS. Oh, actually, this is a senior level GIS programmer and analyst. So even 63 to 82 is a little bit undervalued for the area.
Absolutely. I just feel like mapping and spatial stats and stuff like that is one of the most underrated things, right? Like I talk to people like randomly, right? Like I'm good friends with my exterminator, right? And just talking to him about what I do, and he's like, wow, he's like, I could probably use this to do analytics on where my marketing is and what bugs I'm killing in what areas to bring, specific chemicals to, you know what I mean? I'm just like, dude, there's a whole.
Now here's the golden nugget. I just found eTalent Network. This is the people I guess hiring. It's a junior GIS analyst from eTalent Network for Providence, Rhode Island. And this is a junior GIS analyst. This is their estimated salaries between 77 and 123. And that's
dude.
That's actually like, wow.
And you're in Rhode Island? Rhode Island is dope.
Yeah, so that one's here. Let me send you that one in PM. That was.
Can you imagine being 22 and making 80K a year? Like just like chilling in a penthouse in Providence? Kidding me?
Yeah, man, I should make a new segment just looking for unique unicorn jobs and saying, "Hey,
oh my god." Yeah, I mean, you could probably get paid or something like that from recruiting services, right? It's like, wow, they're plugging our thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I don't know. I've mixed. I wonder how that could go because I don't want to be like being biased towards certain applications because I do like finding these nuggets and these like bunch of junk ones. So
yeah. I don't know if you saw. There was someone from Apple that posted a job for Apple Maps like a week or two ago. I was like, wow, that's a gem. Are you kidding me? If you know what you're doing.
So give you an idea, give folks who are watching this, how much research scientists, these scientists normally have a PhD with certain aspects of data science or machine learning, AI these days. This particular job listing is for a senior research scientist, geospatial analyst, and developer in Canton, Massachusetts. Now, that's a very expensive area to begin with. But this job is for $136,000 to $154,000. So that's actually pretty reasonable. But that's how much money you can be making if you get the education, get a PhD in data science, and you go that route. That's pretty normal from what I've seen, even for this area. But got to get that PhD first.
Right. I mean, I feel like there definitely are jobs out there where if you can just establish that you know what you're doing, right, and that you don't have to be supervised, you're a self-starter and you're motivated. I feel like a lot of jobs, like, if they know you, hey, we know this guy, we've worked with him before, he's super high speed, but he doesn't have that master's degree, right? They would probably rather go with a sure thing without a master's, right? No, I don't know.
I used to think the same thing. Up to a master's is one thing, but if you're like, and this is where I think the military folks have a little bit of a this is where it hits people out of the military, because yeah, the military experience goes a long way to get you a good starting foot in the door with a good, decent paying job coming out of the military. But I also find that a lot of companies hold it against military folks for not having their degree, and they kind of hit this invisible ceiling, even though that they're 10 times better than the guy who has a degree right next to him and maybe getting paid, a quarter more than them or something like that. So, and that's, I see a lot of companies like that who don't appreciate actual experience and build value and care more about the paper degree, even though that paper degree means nothing. So, now that's not to say, most of the PhDs and guys working on the data science aspect, they are, no kidding, not that. I have rarely met somebody who's coming out of with no degree who can do what some of these PhDs do. They're incredible. So, I will give credit to that, but I'm just talking more like bachelor's to no degree military from that aspect.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you really have to knock out that freaking bachelor's. I mean, especially when it comes to anything in STEM, because like it definitely shows. I mean, you can get away with not having a bachelor's in like non-technical, right? Like business or marketing or something like that. But when you're in STEM, you really need that degree to prove that you know what a datum is, right? You can keep up in conversation when they're talking about choropleth maps and, coordinate systems and Laplace transforms and stuff like that. I mean, that's what the degree proves, is that you can go into a meeting and understand what sort of people are talking about.
Yes, and it does definitely matter on that. And I am 10 times more educated from my degree. I used to think it was just a piece of paper, and I would say a lot of my classes felt like it was just getting a degree for getting a degree. But you hit these core classes. For example, my business degree, some of the stuff I learned from a larger macroeconomic level to understanding some of the accounting basics to diving into some of the investing classes I've been with part of my degree. Those were just invaluable, and it would have been. It's not that I couldn't learn those on my own, but being that those were targeted educational objectives for me, just opened my eyes up significantly. And that's the key there. It's like, yes, you can always learn things on your own, but being that these are pushed right in front of you, automatically kind of hopefully guides you in the right direction of what you need for some of the skill sets that you're interested in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And
so I can go either way, because I've been part of both conversations. So
yeah, no, I mean, coming out of the military, I basically just jumped right into college. And one thing that I tell, all my friends that are in school now, I have a friend who's 36 years old, and she goes to Syracuse, and she's like, I just really want to graduate. And same thing with my little brother. He's like, I just want to graduate. I just want to graduate. I'm like, dude, you cannot just graduate, because if you graduated right now, you'd have no idea what you're doing. Right?
No, so, he didn't. And that's unfortunately how I fell into the roadmap, and it was a chaotic roadmap to where I am today. Because honestly, I actually left high school, tried to do a year of community college, had no idea what I wanted to do, because it seemed like community college was worthless, and it was at the time. And I didn't have the right mindset at that age. Some people aren't mature enough to grasp the stuff they need to from college, and I definitely wasn't when I was 19. And so I knew it, though. I understood it. So that's when the military helped me, give me a little bit of direction, give me a little bit of time to help me figure things out, and kind of nudge me of pointing me towards some interest areas I didn't know I had, and things kind of took off from there. Now, obviously, after you leave the military, as an enlisted guy, when do you start your school? For you, did you take classes when you were in? Or did you wait till after completely to start your?
No, I started. I started as soon as I could, because I was kind of jealous of my high school friends. They're like having all these cool stories about being in college and stuff, and so I got stationed up at Elmendorf, and I started my courses at University of Alaska Anchorage pretty much as soon as I possibly could.
By the way,
dude, yeah, it is incredible out there. So. But I tell those people to slow down and just enjoy being in college, right? I would go back. So I went to college full time at a school in South Florida, where I was a scuba instructor, right? I was just going to class, teaching scuba, doing like just diving all day. Dude, it was a blast. I didn't make any money, right? But I had a blast and I rushed it. You know what I mean? I should have picked up, maybe like a minor, stayed in for an extra semester or something. And I tell these people, just like enjoy the college experience is what I say, right? Like you don't have to take an extra semester, but just like I wouldn't rush it, right? It's like
No.
I can't wait to get it done and blah 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 blah. Like, just enjoy it.
Yeah. I'm a little conflicted in that because I definitely wish I had the college experience. I didn't. I did completely online school, but it was.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know, but it also comes down to the position I was in my life. So, there is a certain part of me that really wanted to at first pursue a degree. I really wanted to I really want to know about this. Like more go down to get a history degree, something related to American history or something like that, or ancient history. I'm a big history buff, and then I kind of had my eyes, awake towards what I was doing in my career field. I'm like, I probably should do something related to what my job is. And then I started trying to attempt to go down information systems or some type of programming. And I'm like, this is the most boring stuff in the world to me, even though I feel like I need it. And so I changed it to business, and I'm like, and I'm sucking that up like a sponge. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I like this. So, but then there's aspects of it that, okay, I need it for my job. I sucked it up like a sponge for the education aspect and tried to use it immediately in everything I did for my career, at least what I was allowed to do with whatever I was doing. And so I didn't really have that kind of personal dynamics of getting to know people on the side or having the fun people have in college. But I definitely just tried to run with it, get it done just for the sake of doing my job.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing the online thing, that's a completely different sort of thing, right? But like for my little brother specifically, and my friend who's going to Syracuse right now, I'm just like, granted, I was, when I first started going to college full time as like an actual college student, I was 23, right? So 23 or 24, so I was still relatively young. And, I didn't have a family, right? I literally just slept on my buddies' couches for basically 2 years, right? You can't do that when you have a wife and kids. So, if you're in that predicament, it's a little bit different. But if you're single, right, and you're just kind of, just go with the flow. Yeah, I was just going to school, taking classes, right? Like the college experience is definitely 100%, some of my funnest times, and that's doing. Yeah,
I would have had to do it, I think, right after I left the military. And honestly, I cared more about my career than I did the college education at that point, just to kind of get a job and figure out where I wanted to be. And I had a lot of options. Where did I want to be in the country? Where was I applying to? And honestly, I was trying to figure out where to go anywhere.
Yeah. My whole goal was to be an officer, right? So I was like, I'm going to get out of being enlisted, go knock out my degree. It'll take me 2 or 3 years, and then just come back in as an officer. But I couldn't clear MEPS, so I was like, well, now I have this degree, and now I can't join as an officer. So I'm like, now what am I going to do?
I almost went that route myself, but I got too distracted by too much going on commercially that, like, okay, I'm having too much fun out here. I can't go back into the system.
I hear you.
Loved it. I loved the being in the military. I really did. But I think I changed too much, and I think I settled on what I liked.
I hear you. Yeah, which is totally understandable. Yeah, it was like I should have applied to more of those commissioning programs that the Air Force had. Like they had a whole bunch of them. Like SOAR was one of them I was looking at.
I was looking at going into I can't remember what it's called. It was it was like an intelligence school that you can go to in the DC area. I can't remember the top of my head what it's called. But they basically let you, as long as you had the first 2 years of college complete, I think, as you finish out your core last 2 years, over in DC, and then you basically kind of work towards your commission at that point.
Yeah, I saw that one. That was one of the more popular ones because I think they pay you out as like a E5 or something like that while you're in school. Yeah. So SOAR, the one that I was looking at, was just called Scholarships for Outstanding Airmen in ROTC, and you don't get paid anything. It's just, you basically are removed from active duty. You have to pre-apply to a school. You get accepted. You register for classes, and then you have to be into the ROTC program before you even apply. So if you don't get it, then you just cancel out all your classes and stuff. But and I didn't apply because I was afraid I was going to get rejected. Right? It's one of those sort of catch-22s where it's like I don't want to get rejected, so I didn't apply. Which I think I would have had a really solid case because I was really good with PT. This would have been in 2006 probably. I was good with PT, which is what they were looking at. I had already had a deployment, right? What's that?
I think endorsements by your commander go a long way too with something.
Absolutely, and and like being an E3, I'm just like, I didn't have a strong supervisor at the time, and I didn't really know what I was doing, trying to navigate that whole thing and trying to put together a package. So.
Oh, that was the hard part. Either you're somebody who either has somebody champion you going forward, which really goes a long way. Or you have to go. If you have a bad set of supervisors, you got to pave the whole way yourself, and those are the folks I feel sorry for. That they don't have a lot of help, or the guys who don't make it into those programs because they didn't have folks helping them through. So I give a lot of credit for the folks who did do it all themselves without any help, but there's a lot of folks who just got a bad hand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I had always wanted to retrain into pararescue. That was one of my big things, and kind of the same thing with that. Trying to sort of navigate that as an airman that didn't really know anything. I did wind up getting my package in, but my career field manager at the time denied it. Yeah, so he was like, "Yeah, we're not releasing any 3POs right now." But yeah, I guess that just kind of is what it is. But
I was really fortunate throughout pretty much my entire. There's maybe one or two, but pretty much throughout my entire Air Force stint that I had great supervisors and great officers working above me, helping me out.
That's awesome.
But I definitely can't say the same about people working parallel to me because I saw a good amount of them who wasn't as lucky as I was. So
yeah, I definitely hear you. But yeah, no, I think I did get to work with a bunch of the GIS guys when I was in the Air Force. I think I mentioned on last time I was on, I was in the Raven program, so landing planes, not me landing, but I'd be on a C-17 and we land in a really austere area, and we'd have to get imagery and figure out where we were going to park the plane, how we were going to establish all the security and stuff. And working with the GIS guys on that was definitely a huge variable as to where we were going to have all of our assets out, right? So.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. There's a lot of applied uses around the entire Air Force or military for GIS folks. Some of the unique assignments are always very competitive. So if you're unfortunately the bulk of the geospatial specialists or imagery guys, there's only a handful of base the bulk of them go to, but the rest of them are sprinkled around these very competitive positions. For example, you mentioned you were at Elmendorf. It was well known along my career field that was there's only I think there was only 2 billets for an imagery analyst when I was at Elmendorf, and it was always like a real gamble when that position was going to pop up every couple of years.
So what squadron was that? Was that the 381st?
Oh, over at Elmendorf? I honestly, I don't even know. I never
you don't know?
started looking into it. I just knew there was only 2 billets, and I only maybe knew at the time I knew one person who'd been there, but he wasn't imagery. He was SIGINT, and so he talked about it all the time.
Yeah, my guess would be that's probably the 381st with the big elephant cage that they actually just retired recently. I don't know if you if
I'm
you ever
very
saw it.
familiar
But
with them because we learn as imagery analysts to look for those. So
yeah, yeah, there was a big one on that base, and it's now a part of the National Registry for Historic Places. So
if as I recall, just I believe those are used for long-term strategic radar for incoming ballistic missiles. So that's no
okay.
secret, by the way, for folks who are interested. There's a lot of historical references, and maybe on a future podcast, I'll share people with some kind of cool. Check out this little landmark that people aren't aware of. You know, if you're interested in what this structure is in this middle of nowhere that's just kind of sitting out there rusting, check this out. So,
Dude, they had an entire show on the History Channel. It's called "What in the World." Have you seen that show?
I have not.
The whole show is just based on this is what this image is, and what do you think it is in reality? And it's like all this crazy stuff. It's like, wow, it's actually I think the one episode I saw, it was this random submerged object that it basically looked like lines, like grids off the coast of like Thailand.
Oh, that's that thing they're saying. I remember maybe 15, 20 years ago, even National, History Channel or National Geographic or something like that first started showing videos of that, and they claimed as like, oh, does Atlantis exist? Do we, some crazy conspiracy videos that you see.
Oh yeah. So, but this is actually like they find this really strange stuff over these satellite images, but then they actually send someone to be like, what is this thing? And this one in particular thing was like, they were like making corals or something like that. They were growing corals in this grid thing, on the beach. Yeah. It's like, oh, so that's what this is. What in the world, right? It's like, I'll have to shoot you a link. It was a really interesting show. I only caught it once because, with cable, you have to, all right, I'm going to time this show to watch it at 8 p.m. on Wednesdays. It's like, I don't have that kind of schedule, but.
So that's why I do like watching some of the nature documentaries sometimes, because they actually review some of the landscapes or environments in certain geographies, like either Africa or South America. I was listening to one show, and there's this kind of phenomenon where one of the dried up lake beds, they'd have these like moving rocks basically, and these rocks could kind of move over the course of miles sometimes over time. And when I say time, over a couple months, and they'd have these paths, and I can't recall the reason for it, but it was an interesting phenomenon, and it'd be something that would kind of throw me off as an analyst. I'm like, what's going on here? So watching some of these nature documentaries kind of gives you insight to some of the natural phenomenology going around the earth, and it gives you kind of even more insight to help you interpret what's going on that might not be man-made or man-caused. They're just interesting, situations going on, whether it be by weather or even plant related or even animal related that you just can't see.
Dude, I worked at the USGS for a few years, and we were looking at images of Antarctica, like the South Pole. And there's this thing that looks like a pyramid. And we were like, what the heck is going on here?
We're not going to go into like Alien versus Predator.
No. So obviously with the USGS, we have like geologists and stuff, right? So they're like, I was like, oh, dude, I'm excited. So now I'm a part of this huge conspiracy, but really it wasn't. It was just wound up being this random rock formation. But it was a cool time to be at the USGS, though, I can tell you that, especially as a geographer.
A pyramid in Antarctica, that would have been big news.
Oh my God, it would have been all over the place. There is that kid. There's a whole show, not show, but there was like this big news thing about this kid that was like studying Mayan culture or whatever, and then he's like, hey, based on the stars and the Mayans, there should be a huge pyramid here, and there was. Like this, like 8th grader found this huge pyramid in the freaking, like, I think it was like in Belize or in Nicaragua or something, like something down there. I don't know if you remember hearing about that, but
I have over the years heard about a lot of, we'll call it citizen imagery folks who end up scouring Google Earth and looking a lot closer at things like the Amazon rainforest, and end up discovering these signatures within the vegetation that ends up turning out to be these ancient ruins and things like that. Now people make a living of that kind of thing. So I'm a little jealous that I didn't think of something like that first, because some of those indicators to me are very common sense now that I've looked at some of those past images. Like, oh yeah, how can you not think it's something? But that from my perspective is I didn't even know that. Looking at those areas, I was like, oh, people didn't know about that. So unfortunately, with being an imagery analyst, a global imagery analyst, sometimes you kind of take it for granted what you're looking at because you're used to looking at stuff all day. I'm like, how can people not know that isn't there?
Yeah, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Yeah, so I found the article, and the title is "Teen Discovers Lost Maya City Using Ancient Star Maps." And this kid discovered it because he was, obviously obsessed with the Mayan culture, and he sees like Chichen Itza and stuff like that based on the stars. And he was like, hey, there's a star here. So based on, the actual coordinates of the Earth, there should be a pyramid or something here. And there was, dude. It was like, this was in 2016. It looks like this was, or 2012 maybe. It's a super interesting thing to sort of, to read on how this kid found this. But it's like, dude, when I was in 8th grade, I didn't care about any of this stuff. You know what I mean? It's like these kids are like next level.
No, that's crazy. Of course, actually, it's a good parallel because a lot on Twitter, there's a few open source Twitter handles out there, folks who focus on open source data, do some interesting analysis, basically from these photos that exist on the internet. Where is this location? And a lot of these folks kind of derive the geolocations just by trying to match the mountains in the background with trying to look at the look angle within Google Earth and trying to line that up. And I'm like, okay, I get what you're doing. I'm just impressed on that you did it because of how long I know I would take to do that. The hours it took to try and find the exact.
Oh my God.
In this particular country.
Yep.
But there are people out there that do it, and it's like that's impressive to me.
Yeah, it's super exciting, especially when you see like younger people. I'm actually a grand awards judge for the Colorado State and Science and Engineering Fair for the high schoolers, and some of these kids, man, are putting together some of these projects that are like, dude, you're a sophomore in high school, like, man, all I cared about in high school is Xbox and hanging out with my buddies. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't developing. I think the person that won it like last year figured out a way to like reduce the amount of mitochondria in a cell to like stop cancer or something like that. Like a very specific type. I'm like, dude, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. There's this. So for a GIS project, there was this kid, and I felt like this one kid. He should have been like in the finals or something because it was an impressive project. What he did was he was using Landsat imagery to determine road conditions based on pixels. And I was like, wait, so you're doing what? He's like, yeah, so if this road is known as being good, and if like he was remote detecting like alligator cracking in roadways through imagery. And I'm just like, dude, this is
from Landsat.
Yeah. It was very cool. He demoed a very small area for me. This is awesome. He was a sophomore in high school, and he developed everything using the Python API. Super impressive.
Oh yeah, no, that would be. And that's why I keep. I think I know that a lot of the imagery providers try to sell their high resolution stuff, but to me, I always like the idea of working backwards. There's so much you can derive from the low resolution stuff first, and before you even you need the higher resolution images before you even need the commercial stuff. But there is some kind of mapping backwards. So sometimes you do need to look at the high res imagery to figure out, okay, these are the components. This is what I'm looking at. Compare it to a low resolution image. Identify those same characteristics on a low res image. Then see if you can match that behavior elsewhere. But I think that's a good best practice. Just don't there's no reason to buy the high resolution if you don't need it. Especially since a lot of the Landsat, a lot of the Sentinel is already out there. It's freely available. And you can always use those as, if you find those behaviors, you find those locations, you find those patterns, to say as a tipping and queuing method. If I see that, okay, now order a commercial image of higher resolution to get even more detail to validate it, or how damaged is it after you find those indicators. So using the low res stuff as a tipping and queuing method is also, I think, a good best practice. I've seen a lot of people do that in more recent years too.
Yeah, again, I'm not an imagery guy, so I was super impressed by how the kid, like, I didn't even know how Imagery Analyst works, right? Like the actual extension that Esri puts out. I'm not like, I don't understand how it works. I'm not but I think it's super interesting, and I'm trying to get into it because that's a huge blind spot when it comes to my GIS kind of knowledge, right? I can configure an actual imagery server on an enterprise, but do I know what the data is actually doing? Like, I totally struggle with it for sure, like tips and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's it's, I like to say it's easier than most people give it credit for, but then I've been in some jobs recently that I've had to kind of compare and show people what I see, and they don't see it. So it's hard for me to even kind of relate anymore because it's kind of second knowledge to me. But I'm sure just the same as you, working some of those, putting together servers and understanding some of the stuff behind the more broader GIS tools that Esri has is, to me, I don't get a lot of those, because to me, from my perspective, I always think ArcGIS is overcomplicated for what it is. So,
yeah.
Why is there 1,000 knobs? I only need like 5 of these.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely a big vector guy. So when I was at the USGS, I had one of the coolest job titles. It's called Vector Systems Project Manager. I just carried around cards and just handed them out to people because of how cool the title was. And that's very appropriate, because I'm an animal when it comes to vectors, right? Points, lines, polygons, and doing analysis and setting up all the schemas for all that stuff, and then trying to figure out all of the GP tools that sort of come with it. But when it comes to imagery, man, I don't, I understand what rasters are. I think it's really cool, right? Like least cost path analysis. I love doing stuff like that. But that's also pretty elementary, right? I mean, doing some of those 1 or 2 step imagery type stuff, I think it's cool what it can do. But when you get into some of that 3D imagery, like that's some next level, right?
All comes down to what you need it for at the end of the day. Half people just want to know what's actually going on and what's actually on the image. Beyond that, some of the 3D stuff, some of it's, to be honest, eye candy for the end user. And
yeah.
There are legitimate uses for it, but not gonna candy coat it. Most of the folks I know for the use of 3D is definitely eye candy for the end user.
Absolutely.
Because 3D is not really, especially if you're using like SAR imagery. SAR imagery can convert a lot of things into 3D with how it measures objects, measures what's on the ground, the height of things, and viewing the different terrain. Especially if you're taking that's why I like using the Terrasar X as a good example, because of the way they shoot Tandem X, the way they have 2 satellites going parallel to each other, shooting 2 images right after the other of an area, so you get 2 different perspectives of the terrain. That's how they made the Airbus folks made World Dem. So kind of made a global 3D model of the Earth, of a terrain model using the Tandem X. So those are always really fascinating technical use cases. But at the end of the day, how people actually import that, use it in. Geographic accuracy is important for 3D, but city planning, I guess. I see a lot of folks use 3D for city planning, especially that's where I'm really impressed with some of the Esri software when it comes to city uses of ArcGIS, the way you can do multiple layers of 3D, especially going underground, looking at pulling together the whole top layer, looking underground and seeing some of the utilities and mapping those things out, pipelines and wiring and such. So it's a big industry out there, man.
Yeah. So I was just going to bring up. I built this. I don't know if I can share my screen or not. I can see if I can find this.
Share your screen button on there, and it might pop up on my side.
No, this is disable camera mutes. Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can find this first, real quick. I built this web app using Esri JavaScript API for a. Where is this? Maybe I can. It may be easier for me to just shoot you over the link of, because I can just pull it into CodePen real quick and then just kind of give you instructions as well. But it's essentially an app that uses 3D imagery from, let's say 3D imagery. It's just 3D data, basically just vectors and stuff of buildings in Europe. And then the widget is like a sunrise widget. So you can cast shadows and see how accurate it is. And that's something that law enforcement uses. If they have a security camera that doesn't have logs for what time it is, they can measure the shadow and pull it up against a web app like this and be like, okay, we kind of have a 15-minute window of where this sort of is. Maybe this is it. Hold on.
You should have a share screen button at the bottom of your bar there.
Okay. I'm gonna try to find this app first, but yeah. Do you have any experience with doing like city planning or stuff like that?
No, I don't. I think the most experience I had was when I was in high school. Before I was thinking about ever joining the Air Force, I never had aspects of joining the military before I got out of high school. I took I want to say it was 2 or 3 years of architectural and engineering design classes. So got to mess and dive deep into AutoCAD and a program called Rhinoceros. So they teach you about certain aspects, but it didn't go as far as city planning specifically. No, unfortunately, I'd say the best example of city planning I have is probably just SimCity or something like that. And I got pretty good at that. And to me, I think there's a certain level of realism even for that game.
You think? I never played, but
I would think so. I mean, it's incredible on how detailed of management those guys. And I think I'd love to do a segment on video game based maps and 3D visualization at some point, because as it relates to geospatial, some of the some of that stuff is amazing to watch, SimCity included. How they think about all aspects of how taxes or zoning and drawing out the pipelines, utilities, and planning some of those things out is pretty extensive. It's complicated. And there's a few other games that have come out that are similar to that, that to me gets involved. And that's more kind of in the position more of like a city manager's probably position more than the actual GIS individual.
Yeah.
But it's still interesting. Yeah, if you send me over the link, I can see what I can grab.
I think I found it. Yeah, it's in CodePen. Are you familiar with CodePen?
I am not. Is it like GitHub or something?
It is. It's kind of like GitHub, but it makes it, if you're just learning how to code. If you're just learning how to code, it makes it easy for you to separate your HTML, CSS, and in this case, JavaScript. And I think the live feed is making it load very slow.
What's your internet speed over there?
Dude, I don't even want to check right now. It'll probably crash.
Because to me, if I were to give a guess, you're running off a 50 meg line.
Let's check. Yeah, the app's loading. So let me do a quick. I can do a quick speed check.
I'm gonna really bet. I'm gonna say you're running about 20 to 25 megs a second right
now. Download. I'm at. It started at 15. Now it's down to 12. So 12.
So not even at 20.
12 download, and we're looking at, okay, we're doing the upload right now. Upload is not bad, 23 megs.
Doing all this broadcast stuff, I kind of get a feel for guest internet speed just by looking at the feed and how well stuff is coming in. So Europe gets really interesting if I get a couple guests from there, because it's always a kind of a mixed bag. Some of them have decent connections at the hotels or wherever they are staying, and others are just that I think they a lot of them out in, like, for example, England or the UK don't seem to have much over 30 or 40 megs a second.
Gotcha. All right, I'm going to try to share my screen here in a second. What's that?
So I'm running a gigabit line over here, so Verizon Fios. Not advertising them, not trying to anyway, but they're pretty good.
What are you paying $300 a month for that?
No, $100, man. Actually, a lot less than that now with the new place I'm in. It's I think it's like $75 for first year. It's interesting. My understanding is the Fios fiber office for Verizon is a completely separate department than their regular internet service. At least it was when Gigabit first came out, and I think they had a separate pricing strategy for that. So at sometimes when it first came out, I realized it and got in on it early. In the Verizon Gigabit was actually cheaper than running 300 megs, which was, I think they were trying to charge like $150, $200 a month for it. I'm like, no way. Why? I would just get the gigabit and pay you $100. How's that even an argument? So it's interesting how the inside of a company get 3 or 4 different competing offices sometimes.
Yeah, the buildings are not drawing for my little city.
Well, if you send me the link, maybe I can display it on my side.
Okay.
Now, some of the other 3D aspects, I think we touched on the drone thing earlier. I mentioned this to you before we got on the show, but I messed with an application called Hive Mapper, which actually takes the drone video I have and converts it into a 3D model. And Hive Mapper is really cool. It's open and freely available, and that's how I actually mapped out my entire neighborhood. And they take the video and create the 3D file for you. So. Let's see. I do have. What do I do when I have it?
Click on it and see if it needs you to add credentials, because I made this particular forked pen public.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen here on the thing.
Okay, perfect. So once the map draws, you have to zoom into.
I didn't click on anything yet. So what am I clicking to draw the map? Just run?
No, so it should just. I mean, your internet's probably slow too.
My internet's pretty fast.
Oh, is it? So I don't see the base map drawing yet. So there's supposed to be a base map drawing there.
So in the white space, there's supposed to be a.
Yeah. Yep. Correct. I'm going to try to do a little.
I'm running right now. At the moment, I'm running 500 megs a second. So.
Really?
Yeah.
Still not drawing up because the map is drawing on my end. But yeah, so what that widget actually does is that it basically it's kind of like a simulated sun, essentially.
Yeah, I think there'd be something that pops up. It should pop up by now. So what are you running this in? You mentioned this is in CodePen, but is it running straight out of CodePen from their servers, or is it something else?
Yeah, so it's actually hitting the Esri JavaScript API. So you can see in the HTML there, in that sort of box. Let me see what line. I think it's probably line 9 or so. You can see it's like HTTPS JS.ArcGIS.com version 4.7. So it's hitting the JavaScript API, which for people that are on the call, an API is essentially like, it's kind of like a gopher, right? If you a gopher is in like the guy that follows around like like a landscaper or like an architect or something, where he just runs back and forth and he grabs the hammer for him and then he grabs the tools or whatever. The API is essentially that person that goes back and forth. And each API has specific tools. So the Esri JavaScript API essentially has mapping tools that are available to anyone that has access to the actual API. And in this case, it's version 4.1.4. And then in the CSS, that's essentially how the map is supposed to draw. And then the JavaScript, in your case, all the way at the bottom, you have your functions and you have your arrays and subroutines and stuff like that for whatever you want the map to do. And in this case, it doesn't like the map wants to draw for you for whatever reason.
Yeah, I wonder if I try a different browser.
What are you using? Are
Chrome.
you using Chrome? It should work. No, it wouldn't work. But here's a different link. If you want to try this one, you may be able to show the viewers that one a little bit better.
It works. I can't believe this because I'm not usually a fan of Edge, but it worked right away in Edge.
Oh, it did.
Oh, like
Shout out to Edge. Shout out to Edge. Shameless plug.
Yeah, let me see if I can bring it up here. Yeah, it loaded almost instantly in Edge. So something's going on from browser visualization.
Yeah, it's definitely not my.
I'm not actually surprised because Esri tends to try to make their stuff government friendly, which is centered around Microsoft based products.
Yeah, I think that's because I use Chrome and I typically don't have any issues. But
so what am I supposed to be looking at here again? It's
so try to zoom into, I think, Copenhagen over there in Europe, because I think there's 3D buildings that should draw in Copenhagen. They're not drawing on mine, but they may draw on yours.
I can't. Okay, good. Regular hotkeys like north and up work.
Hockey, you said?
I said north and up hotkeys. They actually.
Oh, okay.
Is there a search on this? There is not.
Yeah, I didn't build it.
You have to help me out. I'm getting a
I
little
didn't
late.
build it.
I needed Copenhagen. I can't believe I'm saying this. I should know where Copenhagen is, but it's been a while. Oh, there it is. It's right there. I got it.
Yeah. So see if
Pull myself.
No worries.
All right. So where am I going in Copenhagen?
So the buildings just should draw. So just zoom in and then push down on your right clicker and then drag it. There you go. So the buildings should draw. I don't know why they're not. There it goes. Yeah. So go ahead and zoom in.
Yeah. Sorry.
So zoom in and then push the little play button. I know my code base, I'm not a front end guy, I'm a back end guy. So that doesn't look too pretty there with the whole daylight. How it's got kind of text just floating in the actual map view, but it works. So go ahead and play it. And then you can see the shadows and stuff, right? Like based on what time it is. It's pretty cool. I think.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and if anyone wants this sample code base, just shoot me a DM on Twitter. I can package it up and send it over, so you can play with this.
_dog, by the way.
GIS_dog, which the real GIS dog is now sleeping upstairs. So
Did you really name your Twitter handle after your dog?
I did. And for the longest time, I had her picture. Her real name is Daisy, actually, and she's a golden retriever. She's a great dog.
That's great. No, that's definitely cool. What do you plan on doing with this? Just an extra little.
I just try to keep my coding skills sharp, so I just kind of plug in different widgets and different data sets and stuff like that. So you can publish a hosted feature service to your AGOL or your enterprise account, and then you can pull data directly into those web maps, and you can share them out however you want. Super easy to do. It's literally just basically drag and drop and copy and paste. So Esri makes it pretty easy.
I love looking at the different ways people visualize the globes out there. I'm trying to think at the top of my head some of my favorite ones. There's some really interesting ones that make maps look amazing. Just the data visualization itself. And there's a few people even from Esri that occasionally post some really interesting stuff on LinkedIn, for example. I'm trying to remember her name. Sarah Bell, I think, is posted a lot of interesting visualization links on Esri-related visualization links. I think she uses Adobe Illustrator to make some really interesting maps. I guess Esri has some type of plugin for Adobe.
Yep. The Adobe Creative Cloud is one of them, and then Adobe Illustrator has a plugin as well. I'm not big into the cartography type visualization stuff, but yeah, they definitely do have a plugin. Another plugin that exists that a lot of people don't know about is there's ArcGIS for Excel and desktop. So you can, if you have rows of lat longs, or you can use World Geocoder and stuff like that, and you can literally do a visualization of your data spatially through the Excel application, which I didn't know existed for a while, but it's super helpful, especially because you can actually push that data directly up to your enterprise or AGL account directly from there as well. I don't know if you knew that, but it's...
No, I did not. No, there's no, definitely not. What I've been looking at is a lot of people use things like Node.js and a few different things related to that.
Node, yeah. Yep.
For example, here, let me shoot you this link over. For example, let's see, and I'll show it to the audience here in a second too.
Yeah, Node was actually created by the guys at Twitter. Yeah.
Really? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me share that one out. So I thought this was, you can move that globe around the little widget too. So just really interesting ways to quickly mash something up. Looks like, where did they get the data from? I'm trying to figure out. Let's see. Got to install the library. This is geo.js, but I think it works something similar to node.js at the end of the day.
What is this supposed to be, like magnetic field or something?
This got to be flight paths. I'm guessing those are flight paths from China to the rest of the world. Some type of supply chain analysis for the example.
I'm an idiot because I thought that was the North Pole. No, this is really cool. I'll have to play around with this. Yeah, dude, there's just so much custom stuff that's happening in the GIS world right now. I feel like it's exploded big time just over the last decade of just like even just the Waze API. You know what I mean? Like how much all that transportation and traffic data, you can just pull that right in. It's absolutely incredible. Like what?
Oh yeah. WebGL is another one. When Google released that a number of years ago, I love watching some of the projects that people have been doing on WebGL globe visualization stuff. Really cool stuff. I love the way a lot of there's entire, once again, Twitter handles about people just making data beautiful, and I love looking at different maps that and globe examples of people doing just that. In WebGL, there's tons of those.
Yeah, have you? What is that called? I know Uber has their own GL kind of API that you can link into. You have to pay for it, but I mean, it's Uber. How much money do those guys make a year, right? It's like, yeah.
Oh, when they're not being sued? Yeah, sure.
I'm guessing you're a Lyft guy.
No, I don't really care, but I do. I think, man, there's been a series of people coming to that company with intellectual property from other companies, and I think Uber was one of them. Facebook is one of the more recent ones. I remember one of the guy who did Oculus. I think he's accused of taking technology from a different company to bring it to Facebook with Oculus too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think AR, augmented reality, is going to be big once 5G becomes more mainstream, specifically for GIS applications, right? Like, you can, with augmented reality, you can essentially put up a virtual billboard, that doesn't actually exist on top of a building, right? Like, if you have the actual glasses or the iPad or your phone that you can hold up, it doesn't work right now because you can't display all the vertices in real time that fast. It doesn't render fast enough. But I think once 5G hits, which I know it's kind of a controversial topic, but I think it definitely will hit eventually. I think that's going to be a game changer for GIS, augmented reality, and virtual reality for sure. But that's just me. That's a prediction from GIS Dog. You heard it here first.
So I'm trying to figure out what this is exactly. And I found this thing called, I was just looking at different WebGL examples, and this is from starlinkradar.com. So I'm wondering if you go to the site, you recognize the logo, right? So I wonder if this is from the whole Starlink, the satellites up in there. And I can't be sure. I don't know. This looks like something custom, though. But if I go to Live Map 3D, it comes up with a nice WebGL visualization of a bunch of points on the map. And I'm trying to figure out what these are. But if I go down to the 2D option, it shows a bunch of satellites. So I wonder if that's the Starlink satellites in orbit right now. It looks like it's refreshing and everything's moving. So it's kind of interesting.
That is pretty interesting.
So I think, isn't Starlink the whole satellite internet going up?
Is it? I don't know. Like, can they pass data that fast to support, internet speeds that are needed to display web pages?
Supposedly. Actually, we can do a quick search on it real quick. So it just comes down to the frequencies, right? And that's what they're buying. And that's unfortunately where 5G spectrums and a lot of satellite-based technology is actually competing on the spectrum side right now. It's not that we're not capable of it. It's just these spectrums have been traditionally owned by either government or DoD-focused areas or even the satellite industry as a whole. And now that the telecommunications companies and other technologists out there are catching up, it's starting to become a lot more competitive for the electromagnetic spectrum out there. So let's see, trying to see what starlink.com, if it gives an idea of what the speeds are supposed to be. I thought it was supposed to be at like 100 megs a second or something like that.
That's pretty good.
For global internet?
Yeah. That's impressive.
See, how fast will Starlink satellites be? There'll be 800 satellites up. Okay. According to SpaceX, Starlink will offer speeds up to a gigabit per second at latencies from 25 milliseconds to 35 milliseconds. That's pretty good.
That's insane.
old school satellites like HughesNet, the grandpa of satellite internet, according to this article by ZDNet, offers download speeds up to 25 megabytes per second and upload speeds up to 33 megabytes per second. So a gigabit will be insane. But I bet that grandpa's internet of HughesNet was really expensive too, as I recall. If you get those folks with the sat phones and trying to do some type of downlink was there, I think people are paying like $1,000 a month or something like that. Elon Musk says the Starlink will cost around $80 a month for gigabyte internet from satellites. That's
competitive. I would probably buy that. $80.
But that's not just global internet. Think about it. You wouldn't even need a phone plan. You wouldn't need a phone plan. You wouldn't need a house internet plan. I would put that thing on a dish and hope it goes in my phone, and I would just take it. I would take it anywhere I go.
Wow.
You just basically you just have to have a phone able to log into the or able to receive the internet.
Sorry, I'm going to try to share my screen here. I don't know if it'll allow me to.
It should. Once you try, let me know.
All right.
So I
just tried.
Hold it. Yep, it is right now. Stand by. Let me bring it up on the screen for people to see. All right.
So I remember Uber saying that they had, a map platform. It's called Kepler GL, and there's like a whole bunch of them. This is New York City census data. What's that?
Kepler is exactly what I was trying to remember. I didn't bring it up because I couldn't remember the name of it, but some of the projects with Kepler GL, if you just kind of look generically, are amazing.
Switch to dual map. Yeah, I'm just kind of playing with this for the first time here, live, in front of millions of people. So, no, it seems like the interface is pretty easy to do, but I don't think there's any metadata here in this sample data so there's no like dialog box or anything like that that's popping up.
Where'd you pull? You just pulled this out of Uber's website?
Yeah.
So if you go to Kepler.gl, the website, there's a lot of other examples, and it's like I said, the examples are pretty incredible from visualization.
I didn't realize, I know obviously Uber is a mapping application, but I didn't realize they were, doing dev on a level that would be, anything other than just driving around in cars and picking people up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense. California earthquakes. Let's see what this looks like. I don't know. Do you know anyone that works at any of the big, like the big tech companies that does GIS, like Lyft, Uber, Apple, Facebook? Do you know anyone that's?
Yeah, I know a few people. A lot of folks at Google, and I think I know a few people at Apple that do it. And I think I recently came in contact with a few people at Microsoft. And of course, if you're talking about other companies like Cesium and things that are more borderline defense industry standpoint too, then my network grows a lot bigger. But yeah, some of the folks that dabble in the only public facing stuff that, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I saw that Facebook acquired Mapillary a few weeks ago. So that's open street maps. So I wonder if they're going to wind up charging for that.
I'm sure, you think people might think it's odd that Facebook be buying something like that. But, if you think about a company like Facebook that pays into either Apple Maps, Bing Maps, or Google Maps as for anything they do, and it's not just like, when someone does a post, do you want to add like a Google Map to it. They might have to actually pay some type of royalty fee to one of those services, or if it's integrate the Google Maps API within posting something. So integrating maps on their own. But you also think about some of the other products that Facebook owns, like Instagram, and once again, what can you do with like Oculus and things like that? So having their own map service goes a long way with advertising to all the ads they do, and some of the photo tagging and things like that they do as well.
Yeah. Are you a diver by any chance, like a scuba diver?
No, that's one hobby I've never gotten into.
I was in a Twitter conversation with someone about this. So one of the big scuba diving cert agencies they're called PADI, and we were trying to figure out if PADI had a GIS department, right? Because obviously dive sites and stuff like that, they could definitely benefit from doing geospatial analysis and spatial stats for their stuff, but we weren't able to find an answer to see if there's anyone there that did anything. But yeah, no, it seems like this is pretty cool. Kepler GL. I wonder how much they charge for their service.
Well, I'm pretty sure Kepler GL is open source. Like I said, go to Kepler.gl. There's a GitHub repository for it too. It is open source.
I'll have to play around with it a little bit.
Oh, if you do get familiar, let me know. There's a bunch of like kind of data sets I'd love to see kind of visualized in the Kepler.gl kind of format, just because once again, it's a gorgeous, it's a gorgeous visualization perspective. And I know they've improved it over the years too. If you
this is all done at Uber.
Well, I don't. Kepler.gl is, I think, a separate project. I'm sure Uber put a lot into it, but it's kind of taken off unto itself. It's kind of like how when Google developed, what's that machine learning? I can't think right now. It's getting late. When Google's machine learning service, and they open sourced it.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like they have some pretty cartography.
TensorFlow. Sorry, when Google TensorFlow.
Yeah.
So TensorFlow is, same thing. Google may have started it and open sourced it, but I'm sure it's the same thing with Uber and Kepler. But Kepler's been out for a number of years now. I think I first discovered it back in 2015, 16. Wow,
that definitely shows how ahead of the curve I am.
Oh no, I just. I have a pretty broad perspective, but I don't know a lot about a little.
Yeah, gotcha. So yeah, no, I have to say to my little brother, Pat, take a look at this because he's big into cartography, aka at GIS_snail, I believe.
But there's a fine line between cartography and map visualization or data visualization. And this to me is data visualization. And it's a lot easier to do data visualization than cartography. Hard cartography, literally making maps from scratch, making data from scratch is to me, just like I told your brother, that to me is an art. So
yeah. Have you seen some of those production mapping systems, right? Where it's like, they just automate all the cartography in it, like some of the maritime maps that you can just basically punch out a few buttons and then it just creates a map for you on the fly. And they're gorgeous maps too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always look for those generators myself because I don't want to make myself. If I give you an example, finding some type of random, the ones the services that I've used that do something that's similar, like, hey, do you want to make a random coastline, like maps from scratch, not based off of reality? Some of the game map generators do this, or do you want to convert an existing map? And I've seen this. I actually brought somebody on the show a couple months ago who took a map of New Zealand and converted it into a Lego map. And then he printed out or grabbed he took the Lego visualization of it, and Lego. There's a couple Lego services out there, open source services out there that people use to generate. Okay, take this design, convert it into a Lego set that will tell you what kinds of bricks you need, how many of you need, and okay, after you figured all that out, automatically add this to kind of a spreadsheet where you can order all those bricks that you need to build that design you just created. From that 3D thing that you, so this guy did that with he made a map of New Zealand. It was really impressive. It was this kind of massive, huge map. Probably I can't remember right off the top of my head. Maybe 3 or 4 feet.
Oh wow!
Yeah, huge. So really cool, and it's similar to how people make generators for like Minecraft, for example. Take a map of, and I was always impressed with the guys over in UK who made the realistic UK equivalent. Basically took a map of UK, the topography and everything, and generated it in the whole entire UK in Minecraft, so people can actually explore the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, there's none of the cities in there. It was just all like it's terrain-based stuff, but really cool that you can do something like that.
Gotcha. No, I think that's awesome. Yeah, no, I hate to wrap this up, but it is getting a little late here.
It's getting so late that I can't even think straight, and words aren't coming out of my mouth right. So
I
folks are watching us. And I'm getting a little slower, spitting stuff out and thinking, and like, what is he even talking about? I'm getting exhausted. So I appreciate you joining me on the show again, Jeff. And we'll maybe we can just do this periodically, once every few weeks, few months, whatever you want to do. I don't care.
I would love to be on with my little brother, and then we can just drill him with all kinds of GIS college questions to see how well he does.
Yeah, maybe
I think that would be fun.
Series or something. But
yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's like test them. I was like, oh, you took this class? Okay, well, let's.
It's like, okay, you know about GIS and wine, right? Tell me how this Merlot tastes. You know what I mean? I think that's what he said, right? He's taking the geospatial analysis of wine. It's like, sign me up for that. I don't know. I think that's what he said yesterday. But yeah, no, we'll have to just give it to him. I don't know. We can set something up.
I'm missing out. I guess I don't know. I went to the wrong kind of school. It's like,
Kent State, right? Kent State, baby. Golden Flashes.
Yeah. So once again, appreciate you joining us. This has been GIS. This is GIS_dog. You can find this hashtag on Twitter, Jeff Pearson. And this has been another segment of Late Night Geo. And I plan on doing this once every often. So if you're interested in joining us on Late Night Geo, just send me a PM, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever you can find, Project Geospatial, or send us a message at projectgeospatial.com. And we'll love to have you on, either at Late Night Geo or any other segment. We can do an interview as well. So with that said, thanks everybody for joining us for this very long session. And we'll talk to you next.